Hello there. This is James, and you're watching OneRoyal, and it's live. In today's program, I want to discuss the latest developments in the Middle East and what that could potentially mean to the market. In particular, a certain waterway which is freaking everybody out. As well as that, we need to ask the question, is Trump's two wars going to make things more difficult for the Fed? And Tesla launches its latest brainchild onto the market. Easy for me to say. But before we get into all of that, don't forget, these little videos are for educational purposes only, and in no way whatsoever should ever be taken as financial advice. I always suggest you do your own research, do your due diligence, and of course, know the risks at hand before entering any trade. With that out of the way, let's get started. So, big question the whole market is asking at the moment, is oil potentially going to go straight up? And there's a reason why that question is on every investor's mind. And that is, forget 2 weeks. It took 2 days for Donald Trump to make a decision about whether or not the United States will get involved in the Israel-Iran conflict. Now, those of you who watched the Friday broadcast when initially Trump announced he was going to give it 2 weeks for diplomacy, 2 weeks to think about his options before making a decision to go in, he again did a U-turn, which he often does, and decided to go in to Iran on Saturday or Sunday morning. Because indeed, the US has indeed entered the Israeli-Iran conflict as the US hit 3 of Iran's main nuclear sites. The big ones, apparently. The big ones. And now, the world obviously awaits Iran's response. But this is what Trump had to say about, his weekend activities. The strikes were spectacular even military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Oh, God, what's wrong with my tongue today? Obliterated. Yes, you know what I mean. He also went on to say this. Iran is the bully of the Middle East. They must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. Now, of course, together we've discussed this over the last couple of weeks, all the uncertainty, the trade wars, with the tariffs. This is now just adding to more uncertainty on the market. Because everybody's waiting to see what Iran is going to do. And then one of the biggest concerns that what Iran could do, because obviously they can't touch mainland United States, too far away. They could potentially attack some of the US military bases in the Middle East, like the ones in Iraq or the ones in Qatar, for example. They could do that. But the biggest concern is for Iran to block the Strait of Hormuz. Okay? This is the big concern. Because the Strait of Hormuz, yesterday, the Iranian parliament voted to close the Strait of Hormuz. And as we can see, we'll make the picture a little bit bigger so you can actually see it. Actually. This is a major waterway, okay, where majority of countries who produce oil in the Middle East, when they transport it out with oil tankers, has to go for this little area there, the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, so there's a big concern that Iran could block that off. Because here's the thing. ran about 20 to 20%, 26% of global oil trade goes through that waterway. I'll repeat that. 20 to 26% of global oil trade goes through that little waterway. So if Iran blocks that, A, for one, economically, for them, it's suicidal. But economically, global, it could be massive. Now, the final decision whether or not Iran will do this does lie with the Supreme National Security Council, okay, and the Supreme Leader. Nothing has been acted on upon yet, but analysts are saying that if this does happen, this is a JPO analyst to say, this severe outcome, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, could push oil prices to $120 to $130 per barrel. Now, and I know, at this moment in time, there is an awful lot of uncertainty with the trade war, with the tariffs, fear of inflation in the future, though we haven't seen inflation rise as of yet. But with this chucked into the works, with oil prices going up to $120 to $130 a barrel, again, which is going to greatly affect the global economy, which is already showing signs. Remember, in other programs, we've discussed this already, where the, IMF and other world organizations, downgrading global growth this year because of this trade war. So this is just going to add more fuel to the fire if Iran does this. Now, for now though, and we'll look at the market at the moment, though, of course, oil did spike initially on the back of Trump or the US doing airstrikes on Iran at the weekend. In fact, oil did touch, and we'll bring up oil and we'll have a look at it, did touch a 5-month high. But now the market is more of a case of wait and see. Okay, wait and see. And there is a reason for this. Because like I say, though oil did spike initially by 4%, however, it's since fallen back down. It's still trading, and like I said, we'll pull up the charts in a minute. It's still trading way above $70 a barrel. This is WTI I'm talking about. But it has fallen back because there is skepticism. I can't say words today. What's wrong with me? The market does sort of think that though Iran has threatened to retaliate against the US for this, there is a general thought that Iran won't follow through on their threats. So this is why the market is more of a case of wait and see. If it was immediate reaction, because don't forget, this attack by the United States on Iran happened around early mornings of Sunday, okay? And though we've had harsh words from Iran's government about a response, we've yet to see a response. There's still missiles flying between Iran and Israel, but nothing physically attacking any United States asset or any attempt, like we said, to block the Strait of Hormuz. So there is a lot of skepticism. I can't say it. A lot of belief that maybe Iran wouldn't follow through on their threats. So yeah, the market is very much in a wait and see type of place. But this leads me to another question, again, which the market needs to ask this question about. Okay, so technically Trump is now fighting 2 wars. And these 2 wars is going to make, or potentially could it make, and it's a question I want to open up to you guys. Let me know your thoughts on this matter as well. Trump's got basically 2 wars, okay? And I'll go into what these 2 wars are, of course. Does these 2 wars make the Fed decision even more difficult? Because face it, we have so much uncertainty at the moment. Okay, the Trump's 2 wars are obviously the trade war he has with almost every single country on the planet. And now, obviously, danger of the war escalating with Iran. And as we've mentioned, oil prices, if they do go up, JP Morgan Chase, their analyst, warns that this will push US inflation back towards 5%, which again will make it very tough for the Fed to cut interest rates. However, Powell was asked this question last week, okay, about oil prices. This is way before the United States got involved. This was between when Israel and Iran were doing it, weren't involved. So this is what he said last week, though, when asked and pushed on the question about oil prices and inflation because of Israel and Iran. He said this: now, these type of things, with oil going up, these things don't generally tend to have a lasting effect on inflation. Okay, because like I say, it fluctuates. Although, of course, in the 1970s, they famously did, because you had a series of very large shocks. But we haven't seen anything like that now. I don't know, US getting involved is a pretty big shock, Mr. Powell. The US economy, as he went on to say, the US economy is far less dependent on foreign oil than it was back in the 1970s. So basically, he's saying that it's a different kettle of fish because I was born late 1970, late 1970, 78, so I don't remember that crisis, but I know a number of people did. It was very tough times for the global economy and for countries in general because of the number of crises we had in reference to oil. So, not saying that this is the same, and this is the thing about Powell. When he makes his decisions, he tends to look back on history. He's a history buff. And you'll see that about it. He goes back on history and looks at the implications of what happened then to imply into what his decision-making should be now. So he does do that a lot. But like I said, he said he's not generally worried. But like I say, he answered this question. He answered this question before the United States got involved. So again, I'm opening this up to you guys. Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget, this is a live show, so you can say hi and let me know and ask me questions. Or more importantly, I want to know what you think about this situation. So feel free to do that. I want to move on to a different story, away from Israel, Iran, and the United States, away from oil. I want to go on to something else, which is quite interesting today, which, if we didn't have this going on, might possibly be headline news, especially for a certain firm which has had a very tough 2025. And that is, of course, Tesla. It's rolled out its robo-taxi. Now, it's done a very soft launch in Austin, which you would imagine you would do when you're dealing with this sort of technology. Anyway, it's a very soft launch. He soft launched it in Austin with customers paying a flat $4.20 flat fee. Now, in general, so far, the initial feedback has been very positive. People say it's been a very pleasant experience. Everything seems to be operating very well. And there was no concern. There was one particular customer, for example, who said there was a moment when he was quite nervous where the robo-taxi was going up a very narrow road with parked cars either side, and it took its time and it was patient and it managed to get through. So very good. So far, this is a soft launch for Tesla's robo-taxi, but at the moment, it's looking very interesting, and we'll look at what it's done to Tesla's share price. And as we've already said, Tesla has indeed had a very tough year. So anyway, it'd be interesting to see how this soft launch develops, and is this a way for Musk and Tesla to get back on top in 2025? But anyway, enough of that. Let's go and have a look at the market. Let's start off, of course, with talking about oil. Let's look at the oil market, how that's reacting. The market's now been open for nearly an hour, about 50 minutes now. And as you can see, look, initially, it's on a 30-minute chart. When it all kicked off, when the United States did indeed attack Iran, you can see that oil hit $77 a barrel, spiked up to $77 $77 a barrel, which is a 5-month high. It's since then, because like I say, people are thinking Iran is not going to follow through on their threats, or they can follow through on their threats. It's since dropped down. It's now currently trading at $72.87 a barrel. So down from its open, obviously. And you can see this as well, where the general consensus, where the market is not panicking. Initially it did, because obviously when the market panics or the market's scared, what does it go to? Safe havens. And gold, obviously, being one of my favorite safe havens, an asset I talk about all the time. We can see that gold, again, initially on the back of the initial attacks or announcement of the attacks, it spiked up. But since then, it's sold off some of its gains. And it's keeping it. You know, it's still trading around $3,380 an ounce. But you see the market is uncertain and waiting, but the longer it waits, the longer it thinks Iran is not going to respond. But again, going with gold again, still, despite it's had several days of losses, this session looks like it might actually close the day with a gain. Like I say, it's currently up 0.27%, not on the high as it was when it initially attacked. And like I say, I'm watching this very closely. You know, we can still see at the moment it's maintaining pretty much a bullish trend. If we then go and have a look how the markets reacted, because initially in pre-market, all the equities were down. But as you can see, the longer it goes on with no response, the more optimistic the market gets. You can see the S&P is up by 0.58%. And you can see that with the NASDAQ as well, up 0.78%. If we move on to currencies, again, initially, safe haven, dollar, not at the moment. As long as this goes on, we can see the euro has bounced back because dollar weakness again, because there's not the safe haven appeal that there was. You can see euro trading at 115 again. The cable, British pound, again, back up to 134. It was all the way down at 133, with dollar, being more attractive because of its safe haven attraction. And you can see again that with the dollar yen as well. Again, big dollar sell-off. Again, the market, the longer it goes on with no response, the more confident market's going to get. See the dollar yen down to 146 after having to be 148 on the back of dollar demand. And you can see this with the dollar index as well, back down to 98. It did just broach over 99.40 initially when everybody was rushing to buy dollar because people were nervous. And of course, let's have a quick look how Tesla's done today. Up a whopping 8.54%. Market's obviously very optimistic about this robo-taxi launch, even though it's a soft launch. Did indeed open with a gap, currently trading at $350.41 a share. But like I say, that's a whopping $27 up, so up 8.63%. So for once, Tesla is having a pretty good day. Anyway, there's other things coming up this week. Moving on to other things we should keep an eye out for, because we do have quite a big week ahead of us. We have, obviously, EU manufacturing PMI, which came out earlier on. US manufacturing PMI. Jerome Powell is testifying to Congress. US GDP, UK GDP, and US PCE, which, of course, is another key inflation indicator. Don't forget, you can ask me questions anytime you like, because this indeed is a live show. Or what I really sort of prefer is when you tell me your opinions, your thoughts, what you think, what your opinion is. What's your opinion on gold, for example, or oil, or Eurodollar? Or let me know what you're trading, I've got other things I to say as well. Of course, if you're not part of the OneRoyal family and you want to know a little bit more, there's a little link in the description below. You can click on it and find out a bit more about us. And if you like, join the OneRoyal family. As well as that, of course, if you're watching me on YouTube and you like this type of content, by all means, subscribe if you like. Hit the notification button so you know next time I'm going live, which is pretty much every day. And you like this type of content and you put up with me, by all means, give me one of these. It's nice to know that you like what I do. The other thing I want to mention as well, I do notice a lot of people don't catch the live show, but they go back and watch the recording, which is great because I like any type of support. If you are watching this recorded and you're not watching the live show and you have a question or have a comment, by all means, put it in the little comment section below. I will see it. I will see it, and I will reply to it next time I go live on air, which of course will be tomorrow. Excuse me. Which will, of course, will be tomorrow, because I tend to go live every single day to talk about what's going on in the market, what the story is, and to share what's going on and share ideas with everyone. Okie dokie. If there is no questions, no comments, not a problem. No worries whatsoever. If there is no questions, etc., leaves me to say, don't forget, these little videos are for educational purposes only, and in no way whatsoever should ever be taken as financial advice. I always suggest you do your own research, do your own due diligence, and of course, with the risks at hand before entering any trade. Till next time, every single one of you, trade safe.